Hello everyone and welcome to First Web Designer. I am James Richman, as always, nothing new there. My guest is new this week. So last week I had someone else, but this guest is not a brand new guest on our show. We've had him before, where he taught us a lesson or two about how to, create a significant life while doing web design. Whereas there are a few things that perhaps you didn't know about him, which were that he's got a few business skills too, because he opened his first business at a very, very early stage and managed to grow the company to a multi-million-dollar company, and then of course he sold it to a Fortune 500 company for quite a huge amount of money, which is disclosed amount, and then he hasn't stopped going. He still keeps running businesses, he has companies. So I thought he would be the best person to answer our today's question, which is what sort of business skills shall I acquire to grow and scale and keep on developing my business? So on today's show, I have Aaron Walker. Hi.
Thanks, James. Man, thanks for having me back. I had a great time last time, and I hope we enjoy ourselves today. I'm sure we will.
Yeah, definitely we will. And of course, it's not just me inviting you, perhaps that it's the whole community of First Web Designer who enjoyed your previous episode, and they were like, man, you got to have him back. And so I thought, what could be the good opportunity? And here you go. One of the questions from our community is about business. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit more than what I did. What exactly do you know about business?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory for the people that didn't hear me last time. So I'll tell you just a little snippet. I won't spend too much time on myself because it's not relevant, but just to give you an idea where I came from. I came, first of all, from a very humble background. My mom and dad raised us. They had instilled great character in us, high morals, but we didn't have any money. We were just broke. And so I started working at 13 years old for a local pawn shop, fell in love with the business. Met a couple of guys in that process that owned a large insurance company in Nashville, Tennessee, which I'm a native. Been here 54 years now. And I approached these guys and asked them if they wanted to open a pawn shop. And they said, how old are you? And I said, I'm 18. But I've been doing this now for 5 years, since I was 13. And they fell in love with the concept. And we went to the bank and we borrowed $150,000 in 1979. And we went out and opened our first pawn shop. And so that's kind of how it got started. It grew from there. The Lord really blessed our business. And when I was 21 years old, we had paid off a 10-year loan in 36 months because we elected to put all the money back into the business rather than to spend it. And so we acquired our second store when I was 21. We acquired our third store at 25. And at 26, I bought my fourth store. There's a company in Fort Worth, Texas, James. The name of it is Cash America. They're a Fortune 500 company. They were growing through acquisition at the time, and they wanted to be in Nashville. So the president, Dan Feehan, he flew out with a guy named San Rizzo, their CFO, and they absolutely fell in love with our stores. We had recently built some new stores, and they were state-of-the-art stores. They were about 10,000 square feet. And we, quite honestly, not to boast, but we had the best stores in Nashville. And so they made me an offer, and I didn't want to sell. And they came back in a couple of months, and they made me an offer again, and I didn't want to sell. And so finally, the third time he came back, and he said, hypothetically, if you were going to sell, what would you sell for? I said, listen, I'm 27 years old. I just built this new store, and I really don't want to sell. I don't have anything else to do. And he said, well, you can do whatever you want if we buy your store. So I sat there and hypothetically made an offer. I said, well, if I were going to sell, it would be this amount. And he said, well, take it. Well, then I didn't know what to do. I said, well, I don't know. And he said, no, you've already said you would sell it for that amount, and we're agreeing to pay that. So it took me back a little bit. I thought about it, and I called my wife and talked to her about it. I called my banker and talked to him, and my banker came to my office, and we visited on it. And he said, hey, you came from a very humble background, and you've got an opportunity now to make a little bit of money, and it'll kind of set you up for life, and you can go out and do other ventures. And he said, I think you should do it. So I went home, talked to Robin about it, and we agreed. So literally in about 2 months from that period of time, they came, did an inventory, and I was out. And I thought, well, this is going to be really fun and exciting. And it wasn't as fun as and exciting, James, as I thought it was going to be. Robin and I decided to take the children. We were going to go spend the summer in Naples, Florida, and we lasted 3 weeks. What I discovered is I was becoming very depressed and bored because I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have a reason to get up each and every day. And so Robin told me, she said, you need to do something. You either need to start a new business, you need to buy a business, whatever you want to do, but you got to do something. You got to get out of the bed. I gained 50 pounds during that process, 18 months. And so I said, yeah, you're right. I'm depressed. I'm getting fat and I'm disinterested and I got to do something. So I went back and I bought the pawn shop that I'd started working for when I was a child. And we spent the next 10 years building a very successful business. We grew it leaps and bounds. I met a guy at that time that was nobody at the time, but today he's known as Dave Ramsey. You know, he's a big financial guy. And I advertised on his show, and it really took our business to the next level. And then in 2001, James, I was headed to the office, and I had a very bad car accident. A pedestrian was crossing the road. He didn't see me coming, and I hit him, and unfortunately, he didn't make it. And it really made me rethink really what my life was about. I had been chasing and pursuing businesses, and I wanted more stores. I wanted more money. I wanted the vacation homes. You know, I wanted all that stuff. And then I thought one day that that's really what would make me happy, you know, to have bigger, nicer things. And it does. I mean, it really does make you happy to a certain point, but it doesn't totally satisfy you. So I went to my partner and I said, listen, you know, I'm going to take a break. I said, I've got enough money to rest for a while, and Robin and I are going to take a break. So we sold the business, and we took a 5-year break. And so during that 5-year period, I discovered that I didn't have any significance. That's what was missing. See, everything was about me. It wasn't about others. And so it really changed the paradigm of the way I look at things. So after the 5-year break, it was time again to start working. Robin said, you're getting fat again. You got to get back out and do something. So we went in the construction business. We had built a new house during this 5-year period. Absolutely fell in love with the concept of building. My dad had done that all my life. And so I went in as the creator developer. I went in with the idea that I would do the administrative side. I would do the sales because I'd always done that. And we grew that to a successful business. We were number one 3 consecutive years in Middle Tennessee. And then at 50 years old, I decided to retire. And so I did. And my friend Dave Ramsey and Dan Miller and some other guys encouraged me to coach. They said, you've got 35 years of business and marriage, and you need to be pouring your life into others. And that's what I get to do each and every day now.
Wow, that is definitely, you know, roller coaster. And I have heard this story quite a few times, and every time I don't get bored, because it's you know, it's a roller coaster of emotions, experience, and realizations. It's not just going blind. Even though you kind of felt blinded by certain things, you kind of had to wake up. And so perhaps naturally my question would be, you know, trying to answer our audience's today's question about business and business skills. Perhaps let's jump straight into this. You know, what did you learn more regards business? What is important? Is it knowing the balance sheet? Is it hiring the right people? A completely different thing?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things that we could discuss in business because it's very open-ended. There are things, the balance sheets, the profit and loss, you know, hiring the right people, having the right chemistry. All those things are very important, but those are things, quite honestly, that are pretty easy to learn. If you've got an education at all in business, you can learn to do those things readily. The things for me that I want to talk about a little bit that's been very successful for me is building relationships. And relationships for me are paramount. It's number one in building any successful business. And I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit if you would allow me. My dad taught me the value of relationships, not only through his life, but through his death. And I'll explain that. In 2006, my dad passed away. And we went to the funeral home. I've got 2 brothers and a sister, and my mom and I, and we stood there in the receiving line. And the doors were to open at 3 o'clock. And then about 2:30, we noticed people started coming. So they opened a little bit early, and the line started forming. And James, the line formed all the way through the hallway, out the door, into the parking lot, starting as early as 3 o'clock. Well, at 9:15 that night, 6+ hours, it was an hour to an hour and a half wait. The line was to the parking lot over a guy that didn't have anything from a tangible. So He didn't have a great house. He didn't have a great car. He didn't have a great boat. And not one person in the hundreds that came made any mention of something tangible that my dad owned. But everybody said, your dad was there for me when I needed him. Your dad was an inspiration to me. Your dad was an encourager. He empowered us. He loved on the children. Your dad was always there when I needed him. Your dad was a friend. And I thought, how funny is that we spend the majority of our time trying to acquire possessions, and not one person in 6.5 hours mentioned a single possession that my dad owned. And so it further ingrained in me the value of relationships. So every business I've ever had since early on, since I was 18 years old, I tried to focus on fulfilling the client's request rather than focusing on the sale. I went recently to buy a car. Robin and I went up. We buy cars about every 8 to 10 years. You know, I'm pretty frugal. And so we went up to buy a car. And we said, we want this kind of car. We told the salesman, and we want a blue car. And he said, well, I've got this car. It's exactly what you want, but it's red. And I said, well, I don't want a red car. I want a blue car, and this is exactly what I want. And he said, well, the red one's on sale, and we can get this rebate, and we can get that rebate, and if you take it today, it's this much discount. My point is he wasn't listening. He wasn't trying to give me what I wanted. He was trying to give me what he wanted to sell me. And so he was more interested in making the sale than he was making me happy. So what I've tried to do through relationships in business is listen to the client. James, you know, when you go to eat lunch or dinner with someone, and you've done this, I'm sure, a number of times, they're always interested in what's going on around you rather than engaging in the conversation. And I tell people, stop waiting your turn to talk, right? Quit thinking about what you want to say and listen to James. Really listen to his heart. He'll tell you what he wants, and all you've got to do is feel that. So whether it's a service-related business or whether it's a widget that you're selling, whatever it is, if you will provide for the client what they want, you'll make them long-term customers forever, and they'll continue to come back to you. So that's what we've tried to do in every business we've owned. Construction, the pawn shops, coaching, whatever it is, we've tried to do that. The second thing in business that we've tried to do is we form an alliance even with competitors. And people are going to go, you've really lost your mind, Aaron. James is never going to have you back again. Well, let me explain a little bit. We had what was called the Master Custom Builder Council in Builders. We formed an alliance with 10 people in the Nashville, Tennessee community that were competitors. Those 10 builders, the last year I was in business in construction, we did $115 million in business the last year I was in business, those 10 builders. And we formed an alliance, and we strategized. We had parade homes that we would put on. People would come and look at those. We would use the power of the group for buying, at which we would pass on to the client, at which we would get more business because we were cheaper, we were custom builders, we were quality, we're the elite builders, and we helped each other. Even when we didn't get the job, we would refer them to someone in our group, which formed a very, very tight alliance. Now, that is a really, really foreign concept. But if you'll do that in any business that you have, when I went in the pawn shop business, I was the only Christian in that business. It's kind of a Jewish, predominantly owned business. It was at the time. It's not now, but it was. That was in the 70s and the 80s. And they told me, they said, you're going to run this business for us. We've been in this business forever, and you don't know what you're doing. And I befriended those people. I would go and talk to them. They wouldn't have anything to do with me. They ostracized me. And I kept on. And I said, I want to be your friend. I'm here to build a relationship. And I would go in and see them. I would visit with them. And I would spend time with them. I wouldn't talk about them. I wouldn't be rude to them. I would build a relationship. In 2 years, they made me president of their association. As a result of that, I went on to buy 4 of their businesses. I went to them and bought their businesses because we formed a bond. We formed a relationship. They saw that I was interested in them not only for their business, but them as a person. And so I just believe if you want to be successful at any business that you're doing, you need to help each other. You need to understand that there's a natural reciprocity out of people doing for you if you will do for them. So for me, building relationships intentionally means calling people even when you don't want anything. Give them a call and check on them. James, you know how this goes. If I call you sometimes and I say, James, how are you doing? I'm doing fine, Aaron. How are you? Everything's good. How's the family? And then I go, oh, by the way, while I've got you, let me ask you a question about this web design. I want to go, you liar. That's why you called me. You didn't call me to check on me. You called to find out about this web design. Is that right? I mean, am I right? I mean, that's the way most phone calls go. But what if I called you and said, James, man, how are you? How's your wife? How's your children? Your business doing good? I was thinking about you today and I wanted to check on you. And then I don't ask you the question. And then I hang up and you go, Aaron really cared about me, right? It leaves an indelible impression on your mind because you didn't call because you wanted something. And you know how that goes. You look at your phone and it rings and it says, Billy, something comes to your mind. It's either going to be a great phone call. He's encouraging you. He sucks the life out of you. He wants something. There's something comes to your mind. Well, see, when you call, what comes to people's mind? See, I want to be that guy that encourages, that empowers, that they're excited to talk to. And for me, doing that is the key to building successful businesses.
And so how do people actually react? Obviously, you've been coaching this kind of thinking for quite some time, and I believe people are not accepting it immediately because there are some blocks in the mind, whether it's, but there is no sale guaranteed, even if after all these calls of caring, eventually I want something back and, or are they going to use me and stuff like that. I'm quite sure that, humans' mind is pretty, messed up because of the society.
Yeah, we're so self-serving, right? We only do things out of motivation to get something. But if you can set that motivation aside, if you can say, as a human being, right, I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to say, I wonder how I could encourage James in First Web Design. I wonder if there's something I could do. I wonder if I could get on LinkedIn and give you a recommendation. I wonder if I could send you one of my coaching clients that's starting a new business that you could develop a website, excuse me, for him. I wonder what I could do to help you achieve your goals. I wonder how you would look at me in the future and think, Aaron is really interested in me and my business, and he's helping me. He's sending me clients. Or what about the competitor? What if you were to tell this guy, I would love to do your website, I'm backed up, but Billy across the country or down the street is a great guy. He's a competitor, but I understand he's got opportunity. He could help you now. There was a competitor I had, name is Bob Shaw, and we competed. We're friends. We go on vacation together. We golf together, but we're competitors, and we built multi-million-dollar houses. And we were competing, and he won this house. And the guy came and apologized, and he said, I'm sorry, but we've chosen the other builder. And I said, I'm going to tell you the truth. If I weren't a builder, Bob Shaw would build my house because he's that good a builder. Well, the guy couldn't believe it. He absolutely could not believe that I would say that. See, what we do is hurt ourselves by talking about the competition. It really, you think, is making you look better, and it's really making you look small. But if you encourage and you lift up, if you've got something bad to say, just don't say anything, right? You would do much better encouraging other people and telling people they're good. If they're not good, just don't say anything. Just say what you are, right? Just say, I'm good. I can help you. So it's a total different approach to business. It's worked for me pretty good. I've had 8 successful businesses, and so I'm speaking out of 4 decades of experience. It does work. It takes time. It takes discipline, but if you will pour yourself into other people, the natural reciprocity will come back, and you will have customers that you never thought you would ever have.
Yeah, if we can, maybe you can also mention, regards the same topic, I know you mentioned it to me once, a little bit about another, maybe it was the same partner, about how you look after each other, how you check up on each other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, okay, so we went into one of our businesses together, and I'd known this gentleman a long time because we'd built a great relationship, right? And so we started this business, and we had everything settled. Everything completely was done and ready, I thought. And he came and he said, Aaron, he said, the only thing we've not resolved is your salary. And I said, well, I hadn't thought about it. And he said, well, we need to talk about it because we need to know how much you're going to make. So I went home and thought about it and talked to Robin about it. And I went back and I thought, well, this will be a fair amount. And I went back to him and I said, well, Herb, this is how much it'll be. He said, I'm sorry, but we can't do that. And I said, well, it's not a problem. I told you it wasn't a problem. I'm wanting to do this to grow the business. He said, no, that's not what I mean. You misunderstand. He said, you're worth double that amount and we're going to pay you that. Well, my point is you have to go into it with a servant's heart. You have to go into it looking out for the benefit of your partner. And I'd like to even talk about partnerships a little bit. I've had a number of partnerships. I know it's a very popular topic, and I get asked a lot about partnerships. One of the top things that I think you have to do is to have this mindset of being a servant leader, having a servant's mentality to your partner. There's a lot of things to consider in a partnership, but one of the top things I think that you need to do is to have an operating agreement between you and your partner. You have to understand the responsibilities and the obligations that each of you have. And the more clarity that you can offer in this operating agreement, I think the better your chance for a successful partnership. And I'll give you an example. It's not necessarily an operating agreement for a business, but 3 of my buddies went together with me and we went to Destin, Florida. There's a real nice resort area on the beach. And we bought a very expensive condo right on the beach. It's on the 12th floor. And I said, before we do this, we've been friends now for 20 years. And here's what I want to do. I want to have an operating agreement between the 4 of us. And they kind of laughed about it. And I said, well, let's talk through it. We all have children. I have grandchildren. I said, if my children want to go, what are we going to charge? If one of my grandchildren breaks something, who's going to pay for it? There's multiple holidays. Who's going to decide when to use it? If I use it the 4th of July, you're going to be upset because you wanted to go. But if we have this operating agreement and it's clearly defined who can use it, what they pay, when we can go, how long you can stay, we have no problem. There's rules to the game. We all understand the rules. Well, we had that for years and years. Very successful, not a crossword. We sold the unit. We're all still best friends. It's the same way in business. See, what happens is it feels romantic to go in business, right? It's like, oh, we can do this. We're buddies. We're best friends. And there's no agreement. And then down the road, there's some hardships come along. There's some financial strain that gets involved. And then all of a sudden, James goes home and tells his wife, I thought Bobby was going to do that. And then all of a sudden, Bobby's telling his wife, well, James is supposed to be doing that. We haven't defined their roles and their responsibilities. But if it's clearly defined, everybody understand what your role is, James and Bobby's going to remain friends for a long time. And I think the first thing that people don't do is the operating agreement. They say, we're friends, we've been lifelong friends forever. But when you put business in the mix and you put money in the mix, now we have a problem. It's unfortunate that it's that way, but it's the truth. The second thing that I recommend to everybody is to get key man insurance. Because I'm sure your wife, James, is a great lady. My wife is a great lady. But if you and I go in partners together, I don't want to be in business with your wife, and you don't want to be in business with my wife, right? Because we understand business. They don't understand business. And if I pass away, I want to have the money to buy your wife out. People overlook this every day. A partner dies, they have a heart attack, whatever, and then there's no money. It either bankrupts the company, they have to mortgage the business. So I recommend to get key man insurance. A second thing is a buy-sell agreement. It's a third thing that most people don't do. Oh, we'll figure that out later, right? It's a lot easier to figure it out at the beginning of buy-sell agreement when there's nothing than there is later when there's a lot. And so if you'll just take the time to sit down and say, if I want out, let me give you an example. I was in partners at 18. One of my partners was 35. One was 45. Well, the 45-year-old was almost an empty nester. I was 18 years old, about to get married, and we had 2 small children by the time I was 23. Well, this guy's wanting to take the money out of the business because now he's 50 and I'm 21. I don't want to take any of the money out of the business. Now we've got an impasse, right? We don't have a buy-sell agreement. We don't have anything in place. So what are we going to do? We're going to argue. He's not wrong. He's 50 years old. He wants to take the money out. I don't blame him. I would want to take the money out too. I'm 21 years old. I don't want to take any money out. I want to delay gratification. I want to grow the business so that I'll have something that a Fortune 500 company will want to buy. If we have a buy-sell agreement, then it's dictated in that agreement as to what we're going to do. All I'm saying is if you'll think through these processes, it makes it very easy. You're not rewarded for getting out early, but you have an option, right? The other thing that I think you should do is have trusted advisors. And I'd like to talk about that just a little bit because I've been involved, as you know, in mastermind groups now for over 2 decades. Trusted advisors to me are people that don't have any skin in the game. They're non-biased. They don't have anything to gain and they don't have anything to lose with their decision. And so they advise you and they give you good counsel. And I believe that there's wisdom in the counsel of the multitudes. And so when I do any deal, I always go and inquire to at least a dozen people individually to get their opinion. So those are just a few things that I think we all should do when we're investing in a business, relationships, and in partnerships.
Well, to be honest, a lot less money, numbers, business terms. You talked about, a lot more. You mentioned people, humans over and over again. And so I guess that's the key, because after all, humans run the business. So yeah, that's something I've been trying to implement in my life, but I guess that's going to shock and surprise a lot of people, especially the competition side of it, and how everything is figurable, all the terms and all the rest of it. But if inside of you you haven't figured out how to treat another human being, then I guess you can't play the game, can you?
James, do you know how fun it is to do business that way? Your stress level is down, you're enjoying it, you're helping others. A lot of people think the pie is only so big. And if you get 2 pieces of the pie, I'm not going to have any left. And that's just not true. We live in a global area with 7 billion people. It doesn't take a lot of people to make a lot of money. And so the pie is huge, right? There's a lot of websites out there to be designed and redesigned, and whatever you do with your web designs, there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of business. It's just a different perspective on the way to do business. It's not all about the money, right? There's a lot of successful people out there that like to make money, including myself, and I know your audience does as well. But the significance part of it is really what gives you the sense of satisfaction, right? Because nobody cares how much money you've got anyway, but you and your family. But what people do care about is how you can empower their life and how you can help them and you can be their friend. And so all I want people to do is make all the money you can and decide why you want to make the money. That's another thing that I teach. I wrote a document called What Do I Want? And it's where we just sit down and we figure out some of the things that we want in our life, and we live a life of intention and we live it on purpose. We don't live reactively, we live proactively. And so I get you really in the different frame of mind rather than just balance sheets and profit and loss statements and tax returns and ledgers. It's like, let's get down to what you said earlier. All businesses are about people, whether it's the people you're working with or the people that are buying your product or service. It's all about people, and it just gives you a little different perspective.
Well, just like our today's listeners are people, humans, and so I can guarantee that they're gonna love your message, your values, and you're gonna more likely be one of the first guest that will be invited for the 3rd time. So as soon as the people finish watching this episode, start sending in more questions, I'm quite sure you're gonna break the record. And actually, it's been in less than 2 months. But for this episode, we slowly have to hit the end of the road. So what I will ask you is, where can people get in touch with you, learn more about the way you live your life, the way you help people create significant life, run business, and communicate with other human beings after all?
Well, I appreciate that. The name of my company is View from the Top. You can get there by going to viewfromthetop.com. James, I'll tell you what we did. We created a landing page for your audience, and there's 3 documents that I wrote that I want to give away. I don't want to sell them to you. I want to give them to you as a gift. One of them is called Personal Assessment. to where we really do an introspection of ourselves. There's about 30 questions on this, and you just privately answer them, kind of discover who you are. The second document I mentioned earlier, What Do I Want? Robin and I, for our entire marriage, we've been married 35 years this Sunday, we have decided to live our life intentionally. And we have said we want this for our children. We want to live in this location. We want to make this much money. And when we reached those benchmarks, we either sold, bought a business. We lived our life intentionally. And we delayed the gratification in order to get what we wanted. This document that I wrote helps you just identify those things. It's a very elementary document, very easy to understand. They're very simple questions. Until you start to answer them, then they get a little bit more difficult. So I would just encourage you to answer that document. And the third document is called Steps to a Productive Day. And our life is just a culmination of productive days, right? And if we can have a great day today and we can do it intentional, tomorrow we can have a great day and do it intentional. At the end, we'll have lived a great life. This document helps you start your day early. It walks you through your entire day. So if you'll go to viewfromthetop.com, and I believe the landing page is 1WD, lowercase WD. viewfromthetop.com/1WD. I'll make these available to you for free. So some of the things that we're doing is writing courses on how to live a successful and significant life. I've already talked about Steps to a Productive Day. It's another course that I've written. I coach men one-on-one each and every day. I have Iron Sharpens Iron mastermind groups where 10 men come together in a virtual conference room 1 hour a week, and we do life together. I've told you the mastermind groups are absolutely a game changer for me. I think they can be for you. We started what's called the community. A lot of people can't afford my services, and I understand that. And I started what's called the community. It's $30 a month. You get to hear me 30 minutes a week teach. I take questions. You belong to a Ning forum where you can come together with my entire community. And if you're interested in that, you can go to my site, viewfromthetop.com, and there's a tab called the community, and I would love to have you involved in my tribe. So that's how you can find me, and I'd love to talk to you.
Wow, yes, it's all about, I like the word, intentional living and the intentional choices that you make. And for me, my intention is, like I said, to have you back on the show. That's my promise to you, promise to our community.
Thank you, James.
So this time, I guess I gotta say a big thank you. A lot of things to think about, a lot of things to write down, and I, in fact, myself haven't gotten the 3 files, so I might go and get them as well. Apart from that, again, massive thank you for being able to come here and share some value bombs.
Thank you, James. I really appreciate it, man. You're a great host. You've made me feel really comfortable, and thank you for allowing me to be on your show.